Hey everyone, Katie G here. I am still sick. I apologize if I sound weird. I'm on my second round of strep throat this month, so if anybody is feeling sick and needs an extension, I feel your pain. Just talk to me about what you need because this winter has been rough. A lot of us have been isolated and have then this year, this winter, opened ourselves up to going back into the workforce, going to school in person. Folks are not masking like they were, a couple months ago or definitely last year. And then we had this triple endemic situation, which was flu, COVID, and RSV. And now there is a massive outbreak of streptococcal in my area in the Midwest. And I have a 3-year-old in daycare, so hence 2 rounds of strep throat this month. So hopefully after this winter, we will all start feeling better. I know some of you have been struggling with COVID fatigue, having gotten COVID, so just communicate your needs. I am very, very adamant about self-care, and often the structure of grad school, having a family and working full time doesn't naturally allow for as much self-care as we need. And I don't want you all to drive yourself into a sickness hole. So, talk to me about what you need. Anyways, I want to start by saying I was incredibly impressed by your assessments and treatment plans. This was actually one of the best rounds of treatment plans and assessments that I've seen, having been involved in this course for the last 3 years. It is very clear to me that a lot of you have already been doing assessments and treatment plans, either in your internship or in your career. Your goals were smart. They had appropriate timelines. For the most part, you didn't say, for instance, that Nicole was going to get housed in 2 weeks on her own with her own job and things like that. There was what we like to call the golden thread that connected Nicole's strengths with her goals, with the assigned interventions, and then the timelines. Your lists of community resources for your areas were also really thorough. I left some comments on some people's things if I felt there was language additions or if things were missing here and there, but this was just a practice. So I left lots of comments throughout to inform your future assignments and your future work. So if any of my comments are unclear, please talk to me. I don't believe a lot of you would have lost points on a lot of the comments that I made. I was just giving additions or clarifications. But again, if it's not clear, talk to me. A lot of you in your reflections, you kind of were split as a group. Some of you were of the opinion that, you were well practiced in this area. It wasn't very anxiety provoking. It was very smooth for you. And then some of you were, saying that it was a really challenging assignment for you, that maybe you hadn't dug in like that before, or that you struggle in particular areas like writing concisely or knowing if you're putting the right stuff in the right section. And sometimes it's confusing because assessments are naturally redundant. And so it feels like maybe we're not writing as concisely as we should be. So I put some comments throughout on there. That was a big learning curve for me, was writing concisely, both in academic writing and in my clinical documentation, notes, treatment plans, assessments. I can be kind of wordy. So that was a lot for me to kind of reel in, and it took a while. And some of you are kind of having that experience as well. But really, really, really good job. I was so impressed. The second thing I want to note about themes is most of you are still not using APA 7. I don't know how to make it more clear, but this week we did start reducing points, and those points were lost in the area of completeness and thoroughness. Had there been something in APA 7 on the rubric, a lot of you would have been in the B to C range on this assignment. So please keep in mind, at this level of education, we are not asking for solely your own voice. We need you to be integrating and synthesizing the course material. You do that by using APA 7. If you did not give me APA 7 citations, APA 7 format, and you did not integrate or synthesize any of the source material, and you used all your own voice, you lost, I believe, 1.5 to 2 points. If that is not clear, please talk to me about that. This will continue, and on your bigger assignments, you will lose a significant amount of points on this. So please, please, please integrate this feedback and talk to me if it's not clear. The ethical spotlight I want to talk about this week is something that I'm very passionate about because of a particular sect or section or domain of social work that I have worked in for the majority of my career, which is not medical social work, which I do now, but is in child sex trafficking, sometimes called CSEC, commercial sexual exploitation of children, CSEC, sometimes called child sex trafficking, sometimes called sexual exploitation. Either way, there is a big macro level social work push in this country and in most states to decriminalize child prostitution. I think that is absolutely essential, and I believe that that is the case because children cannot consent to selling their own body. They can't consent to sex under the age of 18, period, in the eyes of the law, with an adult. So this has been an established law for many, many years. However, in the United States, child sex trafficking affects youth in foster care, CPS involved youth, youth who are already the victims of trauma, and that population is substantially more, there is a overrepresentation in that population of youth of color. So there are some big implications for a law that would hold a child like Nicole, a 15-year-old, accountable for selling her own body and charge her criminally. I have actually worked with youth at the same time who were involved in some of the same sex trafficking rings and had the same pimps, white and African American, and they were treated different in the eyes of the law, and I worked with them and had them on my caseload at the same time. The white child was offered more services and was not held criminally responsible. The black child was. And in fact, she was charged as an adult because she was 17. Now, so not only does this language and the way that we view child sex work, prostitution, etc. in this country has big connections to racial disparities, which calls even more need for there to be some attention to this. Now, I was working in Oregon where there is a push to decriminalize child sex trafficking. California passed a law in 2016. I believe it's decriminalized in Washington. I do not think it is decriminalized in Illinois, where I currently live, or Missouri, where I currently work. So there are some very, very large social work implications. And I wonder what you all think about this. And I noted this in all of you who use the term prostitution. Now, that term was used in the case scenario, and this case scenario has been used for several years. And so I wonder if maybe it's time to tighten up our language on what language we're using, because prostitution is a crime. It is the act of selling one's own body in exchange for money. Often child sex trafficking is survival sex, and there's a history of sexual trauma already. So that's a learned behavior of how to get one's needs met. Big psychological and traumatic implications there. And then there is often, in the United States, a pimp who is responsible or in control of that youth. And so we can see how that would be very complicated. And it's very challenging to charge consumers of sex trafficking, and it is very challenging to charge and hold pimps accountable in the eyes of the law as well. Many Johns or consumers of child sex trafficking get offered services and never get charged a crime, whereas the youth who may have been coerced and psychologically traumatized into selling his or her own body, in most states they would get charged. Some pretty big ethical implications on a macro level. I want you guys to think about this. And if you have any questions about it, want to talk further, get at me this week. Maybe bring it up with your internships, especially if you work with youth who have been commercially sex trafficked or just been survivors of sexual abuse. So really passionate about that topic. And I might talk to Dr. Callum about the language in that case study because I think it might be outdated at this time because of this macro level push. And social workers and the ACLU and many grassroots and national organizations are behind this push. And I put a whole bunch of articles from the legal perspective, the social work perspective, and the grassroots nonprofit perspective, which is heavily linked to the social work perspective. In the announcements this week. So I hope that you enjoy these ponderings. I know that I do, and sometimes I get a little fired up about it, but that's what keeps us in the practice, right? That's what keeps us going and motivated for change. Is sometimes things are broken, and we got to push to fix them on a macro level. And that is a very important role that we as social workers have in the realm of policy. Have a good week.